What's going on, everyone? So, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Anytime I have the opportunity to talk about Zach LaVine, I'm going to talk about Zach LaVine because I really do think out of all the options that are out there, as far as cost, as far as greatest impact and potential upside for this Lakers team, I think Zach LaVine makes the most sense. Now, Zach LaVine did the media day with the Chicago Bulls. Before he even got started, he gave this whole speech about how, he wants to be better. He really had time to reflect and basically kind of like, hey, I'm healthy. I'm in a better mindset. I'm in a better place. Come trade for me, right? That's kind of what it seems like, because also, according to the Chicago Tribune, as well as other Chicago sources, the plan is still to trade Zach LaVine. That Zach LaVine still wants to be traded, and the Chicago Bulls are still very active in trying to trade Zach LaVine, that they would rather get off of him sooner rather than later. Zach LaVine has made it very apparent all offseason that, like, hey, I'm healthy, right? He's posting all these videos of him doing these, like, hyper dunks and all this stuff, right? Like, he's trying to get the word out there of, like, I know the concern is my health, right? I'm healthy. I'm ready to contribute. I'm ready to make a big impact. Now, I said this before. I think if the Lakers ever do trade for Zach LaVine, because even in the reports that are coming out, the Lakers are still linked to Zach LaVine. Now, it does say that there has been no kind of signal that a deal has ever gotten done or is planning on getting done, but both sides have talked about it. Lakers have inquired about Zach LaVine. Chicago's contacted the Lakers about Zach LaVine. Like, both sides have had dialogue about it. But if you're the Lakers, it's in your best interest to wait for a couple reasons. One, you want to make sure Zach LaVine is healthy. You want to make sure he's good to go. I think if they were to eventually trade for Zach LaVine, it'll be, probably January, somewhere in that part, right? I'm sure that they would want to see at least the first 30 plus games that Zach LaVine is healthy, contributing, playing well, looking good, looking explosive. There's no signs of him kind of wearing down, right? Because last thing you want to do is, yes, you don't have to give up assets to go get Zach LaVine, but you still have to give up several players to go get Zach LaVine, bring him in. And the idea is, like, yes, if he's healthy, the contribution that he can provide is huge, right? You got a guy that on a bad night is going to give you 15, where you look at Reeves and D'Lo, on a bad night, they give you like 5, or D'Lo's case at times give you a goose egg, right? So if you could get a guy that has the scoring prowess of a Zach LaVine, the athleticism that the Lakers desperately need, the applied rim pressure, help with rebounding, help make some plays, do a little bit of everything out on the basketball court defensively. He gets a bad rep defensively, but he's actually not that bad defensively, especially when he's locked and engaged. He's actually very good defensively, but it's just getting him to buy in possession after possession after possession after possession. But with him not having to be one of the main scoring options night in and night out, because you have LeBron James, you have Anthony Davis, right? He should be able to exert some energy on the defense side rather than like, hey, for us to even have a chance to win, I have to go drop 30 plus, where, he only has to give you 15 to 20 on a regular night for the Lakers to have success. I also think as far as like natural fit goes, right, he's probably the best natural fit, right? I love the idea of Steph. I love the idea of Kyrie. I love the idea of like the big name, of course, right? If you could do that, that would be fantastic. But all those guys have either been the number one or at worst number 2 option, right? So there is questions and concerns of like, what do they look like as the third option? Right? Or how does that work? Does LeBron drop to the third option, right? Like, there could be this kind of learning curve. I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm not saying you don't do it if you can. I'm not saying any of those things. But I'm just saying that Zach LaVine would know immediately coming in that, hey, he's the third option. Not just that, but he's also played as, second, third option on several teams in the past. So he is a guy that could plug in and just be a natural better fit, right? I don't think that the learning curve would be as severe, if any, with a guy like a Zach LaVine, because you know what he does best and you just want him to do that. And he can kind of fit in with LeBron and Anthony Davis, but LeBron and Anthony Davis could still be them. They could still be LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Obviously, a guy like Steph, he's so good off ball that even though he's the third option, right, I do think that fit would just be seamless. But, a guy like Kyrie, who's best with the ball in his hands, right? I'm not saying you don't do it, but, his usage and whatnot, right? You look at Dallas and his fit at times with Luka. Well, now he'd be the third option, right? Where Zach LaVine, I just think would be that natural kind of plug in, play, let's go. You know what I bring. I know what you need from me. I can provide that. I think that would go a real long way for the Lakers. But the other side of that for the Lakers, outside of like, hey, I want to see Zach LaVine healthy and playing first before you make that type of commitment. Because it is true. Like if you go and trade for Zach LaVine, you're likely stuck with him. But that's the case for all these guys, right? Almost pretty much everybody, right? Jeremy Grant, Cam Johnson, Bruce Brown, like all these guys that are linked to the Lakers that people want the Lakers to go get all have injury history. And guess what? You're likely stuck with most, if not all of them. Bruce Brown is an expiring, so if it doesn't work out, you can just let him go. But Jeremy Grant, he's still got, 3 years left on his contract? And it just keeps getting worse, right? And he's a guy that plays like 50, on a good year, 60 games a season at this point, right? Same thing with Cam Johnson. The most Cam Johnson has ever played in a season is 66 games, right? Like, all these guys have injury issues. All these guys you're probably stuck with if you make the trade. The difference is with Zach LaVine, you don't have to give up any first. You don't have to jeopardize your future, or you still have those assets to go make other moves, make other trades, or if you need to get off of him at some point, right? You have the assets to potentially get off of him, right? As opposed to some of these other teams, right? Like if you get Jeremy Grant, you're giving up your first. You don't have the stuff to get off of him. You're stuck with him. If it doesn't work, you're trapped, right? But from the Lakers standpoint, if you're the Lakers, you also want to see, right? Like, what if Austin Reeves really is able to take some strides, take some steps? Or what if Rui is able to take some strides, take some steps, right? And it's like, we don't really need Zach LaVine's scoring. We don't need his consistency. Austin Reeves, every game on a bad night even, is giving us 15, right? If it's like that and these guys, because JJ Redick seems very confident he can kind of raise the ceiling, particularly of Austin Reeves. Rob Pelinka has even said the same thing. But even Rui Hachimura, they believe that they can get Rui to be a better version of himself. So if that's true, like if Rui can go from like a 14-point-a-game guy to like a 20-plus point-a-game guy, or Austin Reeves can go from a 16-point-a-game guy to a 20-plus point-a-game guy, or even D'Lo, if he can really kind of get some consistencies. I know there'd be concerns about his playoffs, but if he can kind of get more consistent and more confident, and JJ Redick can kind of empower him more, right? You may look and go, you know what, Zach LaVine isn't as needed as it is right now, right? The only thing we have to go off of is last season, right? We don't know what guys have improved, what JJ Redick's going to be able to get out of guys, right? So the reason I want Zach LaVine so badly is because of what we saw last year and kind of the lack of consistency game in and game out from several guys, D'Lo, Reeves, Rui in particular, right? To where Zach LaVine, every place he's been, he's, again, on a bad night is giving you 15, right? But on any given night, he could go get you a 50 piece. Played, 25 games last year and still gave you a 50 piece, right? So to me, it's just he's going to give you more consistency, also provides other needs. Again, that athleticism, the rim pressure, helping with rebounding, playmaking. Again, if he can buy in on the defensive side, he's just going to be better defensively than D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, right? Like all of those things factor in. But again, if let's say Austin Reeves really is able to emerge or Rui is really able to emerge, well, then maybe it's like, okay, we don't really need that scoring. Let's go, but our defense is lacking. Maybe now it's like, okay, Zach LaVine doesn't really make as much sense. We need somebody like a Bruce Brown alongside Austin Reeves, or we need somebody like a Wendell Carter Jr., or, hey, like Rui is just, he hasn't really hit those strides. Maybe we should take the chance on a Jeremy Grant, right? Like, it's okay for the Lakers to take a step back, evaluate what JJ Redick is able to do with this roster, kind of identify the real needs, right? Which are probably going to be similar to last season, but could vary a little bit, right? Could be some differences. And it's like, okay, we don't need to go and push for a guy like Zach LaVine. But again, maybe it doesn't. And it's like, man, we really need that scoring punch, right? We really need to take a shot here. Right, you start slipping down in the standings or something like that, and it's like, man, like Zach LaVine does give us the best upside. Let's just go make that deal, right? Talk to JJ Redick, hey, what do you think you could do with Zach LaVine? I think I could, putting him in all these different actions, his athleticism, his speed, right? Putting him, obviously pick and pop, pick and roll, right? Have him on pin downs, coming off a pin down. Like, you could just do a lot with Zach LaVine on the offensive side because of his versatility, because of his athleticism, because of his rim finishing, because of his shooting. Talk about a guy that's one of the best catch and shoot three-point shooters in the league, right? He's a guy that can elevate. But one, again, you need to make sure he's healthy, right? Last thing you want to do is trade for him, and 20 games in, Zach LaVine's hurt, and now it's like, well, there goes that, right? Where if you can see him actually deliver and play, like I said, 30 games, and there's no real sign of him like breaking down or anything like that, it's like, okay, let's take the chance, take the risk. Obviously, it'd still be a risk, but again, all these guys would be a risk. And then from the Lakers standpoint, you just want to make sure, is Zach LaVine really a piece that you need? Because again, if Austin Reeves gets to 22 a game, right? Because he is back to being more consistent, more efficient. He is being more aggressive on the offensive side of things. I mean, we've seen him go on stretches where he's averaged 20 plays, even last year in bad stretches. As bad as he was consistency-wise last year, have these little pocket games where he was going and giving you 20 plus a night, right? If he can start doing that game in and game out, I'm not saying, obviously bad nights happen, but if the bad night is instead of 5, right, it's like 12, that's a big difference, right? Like, so then it's like, okay, we don't really need Zach LaVine as badly as, it looked like we could have used him last season. So I do think it's in the Lakers' best interest, but clearly Zach LaVine and Chicago are both still very much on like, hey, we're going to trade me, and Zach LaVine's just trying to relay like, hey, whatever I need to do, basically trying to show like, hey, I'm not that bad guy. Right, the conversation went from like, oh, he just doesn't want to go to Detroit to, he's trying to save face a little bit, as well as like relay to everybody like, I am healthy, I'm ready to go. If somebody wants to come get me, I can help impact the team. But he can't be like, hey, trade for me. So he's like, I'm willing to, help this team and buy in whatever role they need me in. But again, kind of sending those signals out. But then you look at the reports and it's like, no, he's doing that for other teams. He's not doing that for Chicago, because Chicago's still actively trying to trade him. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree that like Zach LaVine, go get Zach LaVine, he's the answer? Do you think like, yes, be patient, wait, let's make sure he can play first, right? Make sure this Lakers team really do need somebody like that. Or do you think like, no, regardless, just go get him. He's an upgrade over everybody. I mean, he'd immediately be the third best player on this team, right? Like, and you would be able to get him for peanuts, essentially, right? But also you want to see what pieces are, like, what if Gabe Vincent is just really good for us? Right, so maybe we don't want to trade Gabe Vincent. Maybe we want to stack, some contracts to kind of get over the hump for Zach LaVine or something. Or what if, Jared Vanderbilt just can't stay healthy, and it's like, instead of throwing in Gabe Vincent, let's throw in Jared Vanderbilt, right? That way we at least have some kind of defense point of attack guy, right? Like, you want to kind of see and kind of survey the landscape if you're the Lakers before you go and just make a deal, right? So I'm all for them being patient, but I still think at this point, Zach LaVine is probably the best option. But we'll see. Also, things, you never know what develops, right? Karl Anthony Towns trade kind of came completely out of left field, right? No one really saw that coming or expected that, right? And supposedly the Knicks were working on that all offseason dating back to the draft. Very possible the Lakers are kind of working on the same things behind the scenes elsewhere, and just, teams are not relinquishing. So we'll see. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so let me know. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.